I will tell you something about Reth before I tell you about Maeve. Reth came to me in my first year as king, a wolf pup no larger than my forearm, found in the eastern pass after a late-season storm took his entire litter. My garrison commander at the time, a man named Aldrich who has since gone to his rest, brought the animal wrapped in a cavalry blanket and set him on my table during a border council meeting without explanation. The lords of the eastern reaches watched me pick up the pup. They said nothing. The pup stopped shaking almost immediately. He has not left my side in 22 years. I say this so you understand what it cost me to stand in the upper corridor of Valdenmere Keep in the dark and listen to my wolf breathe. He had been failing for 11 days. There was no wound anyone could find, no puncture, no infection, no fever that presented itself to any instrument the healers carried. He simply began one morning to move more slowly, to eat less, to sleep in a way that did not look like rest. By the 5th day, he would not leave the den below the great hall. By the 8th, he would not rise when I entered. He would lift his head and set it down again, and his eyes, which have always been the amber of old embers, had gone gray at the edges. I sent for every healer in the eastern reaches. They came and they examined him, and they told me what they could not find, which is a different thing from telling me what was wrong. The last of them, a senior woman from the Pelreth Valley with 30 years of practice behind her, sat back on her heels after 2 hours with him and looked at me without apology and said the kindest thing she could, that some bonds, when they have run their full length, simply begin to release, that it was not a wound, that it was age and the end of things. Reth is 9 years younger than I am. I thanked her and walked her to the gate myself, which is not a thing kings do, and I did it because I did not know what else to do with my hands. That evening Pelin, my garrison commander, a man I have trusted with the eastern border for 14 years, came to find me in the upper corridor. He had the look he wears when he has done something he believes was correct and is not certain I will agree. He told me a woman had arrived at the gate near dusk. A traveling healer, he said. No pack affiliation, no housemark, carrying a satchel that looked as though it had been repaired several times. She had heard, she said, that there was a wolf in need of care. She had asked to be allowed to sit with him for one night. She had not asked for payment in advance, which Pelin seemed to find either admirable or suspicious. With him it is sometimes difficult to tell. He had turned her away. The Pelrath healer had just left. He did not see the purpose in admitting another one with no credentials. I asked him what she had done when he turned her away. She had thanked him, he said, and walked to the outer wall and sat down with her back against it. She was still there. I stood in the corridor for a moment. Below me, Reth breathed too slowly, too carefully, as though he were conserving something he was afraid of running out of. I told Pelin to let her in, to give her the den, the lamp, and anything she asked for, to stay out of her way. I did not go down myself. I told myself this was because I did not want to watch another healer fail, and this was partly true. The other part I did not examine. She was there for 4 hours before I went down. The garrison had gone quiet, the second watch, the deep part of the night when Valdenmere settles into its own cold, and the only sounds are the outer wall and the fire. I descended the east stair and stood at the entrance to the den and looked. She had not lit any additional lamps. She was sitting on the stone floor beside Reth with her back against the wall and her knees drawn up, her satchel open beside her, though I could not see that she had taken anything from it. She was not performing any remedy. She was simply there, in the way that certain people are simply present in a room, not filling it, not demanding anything of it, just occupying their own portion of it without apology or theater. Reth's head was in her lap. This is a thing he has done with me. He has done it with Pelin once in 13 years, after Pelin had a difficult winter and sat in the den for an hour saying nothing. He had not done it with any of the healers who had come before her. I must have made a sound because she looked up. She did not startle. She looked at me the way you look at someone you were expecting to arrive, eventually, a mild and patient acknowledgement. She said quietly that she hoped she had not woken me. I told her she had not. I sat down on the other side of him. I do not know why I did this rather than return upstairs. The stone was cold. I had not sat on the floor of the den since Reth was small enough to need me to come to his level. She did not ask me who I was. I was aware from the way she did not ask that she already knew. We sat for a time without speaking. This did not feel strange. The silence in the den at that hour is a particular kind, not empty, but full of the wolf's breathing and the low sound of the garrison beyond the walls and the cold pressing in from the eastern pass. She seemed at ease in it. I am not, ordinarily, at ease in silences with strangers. I was at ease in this one. After a time she said, not looking at me, that the wound was not a wound. She said it in the same tone the Pelrath healer had used, the tone of stating something that cannot be argued with, but the conclusion she arrived at was different. She said the bond he carried had been pulling in two directions for a long time, that animals bonded to their people feel, alongside the warmth of that bond, the weight of things unresolved in the one they are bonded to. That Reth was not failing from age. He was failing from the effort of holding something together that was not his to hold. I looked at her. She met my eyes then fully, without performance. She had a way of being looked at that did not require anything in return. She simply held it. I asked her what it was he was holding together. She said she did not know, that it was not her place to know, that the wolf knew and that was enough. I felt then, the thing I had been aware of at the edge of my attention since I sat down, a warmth behind the ribs on the left side, low and banked, the kind of warmth that has no obvious source. I had felt it before, distantly, as a thing that had simply always been there, and which I had never examined because it had never demanded examination. It was warmer now. It had been warmer since I came down the stairs. I did not know what to do with this information, so I sat with it the way I was sitting with everything else in the den that night, quietly. Without forcing it into a shape it was not ready to take. By the hour before dawn, Reth's breathing changed. Not dramatically, there was no shudder, no visible recovery, nothing that would have made a good story. His breath simply deepened and evened, and the careful quality went out of it. He breathed the way he breathes when he is asleep in front of the fire on a cold evening, which is the most peaceful thing I know. She looked down at him for a long moment, then she looked at me. She said she thought he would be all right by morning. I did not ask her how she knew. I believed her. This surprised me less than it should have. I went upstairs. I do not think I slept, but I rested. At dawn I heard Pellin's voice in the yard, a short word, surprised, and then a sound I had not heard in 11 days, which was Reth's feet on the stone of the corridor, the particular rhythm of a healthy wolf moving at pace. He came up the east stair, which he has not been able to manage since the 5th day, and pushed open the door of my chamber, which he has been doing since the door was first installed, and walked to my side and pressed his head against my hand. His eyes were amber again, all the way through. I held his head for a moment, then I followed him downstairs. She was in the yard when I reached it, satchel over her shoulder, the posture of someone who has concluded her business and is calculating the next road. The garrison had assembled, not formally, not at any order I had given, but the way a garrison assembles when something has happened that they feel they should witness. Pellin stood at the yard's center. He had the look he wears after he has revised his position on something and wishes to make the revision known without drawing attention to the original error. Reth walked past me across the yard and sat down beside her. He did not look back at me. He simply sat in the way he sits when he has decided something, which is with the full weight of his conviction and no interest in debate. She looked down at him, then at me. I felt the warmth behind my ribs blaze, not gradually, not as a warming, but as a thing that had been banked for 31 years and had simply in that moment stopped pretending it was something smaller than it was. It ran gold from behind the ribs to the wrist, and I looked down and saw it there. The bond mark, the first time it had appeared on my skin in 3 decades, blazing clean and full. I looked at her wrist and saw it on hers as well. She was looking at it with the same expression she had used for everything else that morning, patient, and not particularly surprised. I looked at Pelin. He was already turning to face the assembled garrison. He drew himself to his full height. Pelin is not a dramatic man, which is why I trust him with the border, but he understands the weight of a moment when it arrives. And he said, in his carrying voice, that the garrison of Valdenmere Keep would know that the Alpha King had named his mate this morning, and that her name was Maeve, and that she held the rank of Luna of the Eastern Reach, and that the records would reflect it before the next bell. He turned back, and then he bowed to her, a full bow. Pelin, who has bowed to me a handful of times in 14 years and considers formality a kind of inefficiency. He bowed and held it, and the garrison behind him followed. She watched this. She did not perform being moved by it. She was moved by it, I could see that, but she held it the way she held everything, with a stillness that did not require anyone else to manage it for her. I crossed the yard. I stopped in front of her and held out my hand, palm up. This is not a formal gesture. It is not a king's gesture. It is the gesture I use with Reth when I want him to know I am not going anywhere. She looked at my hand. Then she set her satchel down on the flagstones with the care of someone who intends to pick it up again later, when there is time, and she placed her hand in mine. Reth stood and walked between us and sat down, facing the gate, which is the direction he sits when he is indicating that the matter has been settled, and he is prepared to move on to whatever comes next. I have, in the years since, asked Maeve what she did for him that night, what remedy she used, what she found that the Pelreth healer could not. She tells me, each time, that she did not use a remedy, that she sat with him, that sometimes the thing a creature needs is not a cure but a witness, someone who will stay through the dark hours without requiring the creature to be better than it is. I believe her. I have also come to believe that what Reth was holding together in those 11 days was the waiting, the 31 years of the silver thread running thin and patient and unacknowledged through my chest, and his awareness that the answer to it was close, finally, and his refusal to go before I had found it. He did not need a healer. He needed me to open the gate.